All right, so as we mentioned at the top of the program, 12 Republican senators joined with the Democrats to put into federal law the Supreme Court's redefinition of marriage in the Obergefell case going back 7 years. Why does this matter? Well, because what this does is, as we talked about with Senator Lee, and if you actually missed that interview, I encourage you to go to TonyPerkins.com a little bit later and watch it. But as we talked about, this is a real threat to religious freedom. It's a threat to individuals and their exercise of their religious freedom. It is a threat to religious institutions. I have no doubt that the Family Research Council, which is a nonprofit organization, that we will see attacks, challenges to our tax-exempt status as a nonprofit because we refuse to yield to the cultural winds on marriage. We are a Bible-believing organization, and we believe what the Word of God says. And you look at the institution of marriage, it was not created by man. It was created by God in the Garden of Eden before man even sinned. You know, Adam and Eve came out of the garden, as we talked about yesterday, with a marriage certificate from God and a wool suit. That was it, nothing else. This is not for man to redefine. And not only are we redefining marriage, but we're giving the lever of power and of government really persecution or prosecution, however you want to look at it, to those who want to redefine marriage, family, and human sexuality. And we've seen, and I know someone say, well, you're beating a dead horse. You talked about this yesterday. I'm going to talk about this all the time. And if you don't want to hear it, go ahead and turn me off. Because I'm telling you, they are marching us down a path of destruction. And it needs to begin, the pulpits in America need to begin declaring God's truth and challenging the people of God to live out that truth, and for the people of God to vote for people who will uphold that truth. You know, I hear this quite frequently from leaders that I meet with here in our nation's capital. They'll say, well, Tony, why do Christians expect me to talk about issues that pastors won't preach about? You know, that's a good question. Look, we see the cultural decline. We cannot hide from it. We cannot deny it. We have to stand lovingly against it. Because as we stand for truth and speak that truth, others may come to know that truth and find the freedom that can only be found in Jesus Christ. Join me to talk about this and the way forward. Travis Weber, Vice President of our policy shop and GA. So Travis, disappointing vote today, but as we were talking about with Senator Lee earlier, I was not procedurally aware that there are two more threshold votes of 60 votes.
Yeah, I think there could be. We have to look at how things develop in the days ahead. It's possible we could face those, and before final passage, when we could see the bill move out of the House or move out of the Senate, have to go back to the House. But this was a troubling vote today, for sure, a very troubling vote, and there's a lot, as you're outlining for us, a lot of work and prayer to be done.
Yeah, and there's also the clock. There's also the clock. There's a clock here because you've got, as was pointed out, you've got Thanksgiving coming up. This is a lame duck session that's limited, and so look, God can intervene here.
He absolutely can. And it's important for us. Tony, you mentioned we may be accused of beating a dead horse. Well, sometimes we don't have another option but to beat a dead horse when it comes to standing on what God has called us to stand upon, and that's what we're doing here, articulating for Christians in America that these are biblical issues. They're not we think people hear claim it's political, stay out of it. It's biblical. There's an intersection with politics for the public life of our nation, which we're all charged with governing, including, as you noted, our nation's pastors. So right. No other option but to stand where we've been standing on this.
Right. Yeah, these issues are moral and spiritual issues, and you have those that come in and make them political. And then tell Christians and others to back off. Don't touch the issue. The reality is these are issues of truth that we must speak to, whether or not it's culturally acceptable, Whether or not the political class applauds it, it does not matter. We have to speak the truth, and this requires everyone to be involved. This is why I say this often, our republic was made for participants, not spectators. And I'm thankful. I really am thankful for our viewers and our listeners who do engage, because I know you do, because I hear it from members of Congress. But I'm going to tell you, we cannot give up on this. We've got to pray, okay? Continue to pray. I'm praying. I was up early this morning praying about this. And I'm going to let the mockers mock, okay? The left, the mockers mock. That's what they do. Let them mock. Look, we are standing on the side of transcendent truth. The Word of God never changes. And so, there are those that want to say, you guys are on the wrong side of history. I don't think so. We're on the side of the one who is writing history.
And Tony, this is a dangerous moment for our nation. When we stand here and say, beware of the cliff we're marching towards, it's not out of a place of glee, gloating, judgment. It's a place of our hearts are broken for these leaders who are helping lead us to this place. That's a sobering moment. So, there'll be mockers who say, oh, you're mocking the issue we decided years ago. Well, sorry, it could be decided 50 years ago. We're still going to say it. Doesn't matter.
You can't make what is immoral moral.
And we're going to declare it out of a desire to see people recognize this return. And we're praying for that, right? So for the listeners, we're declaring it, praying the change. And that's a sobering, but it's a hopeful reliance on Christ.
But we know, we've talked about what is happening in education, and this will only accelerate it if this stands, if this makes its way all the way through, and President Biden, it gets to his desk, I'm sure he'll sign it because he loves everything that's perverted like this, and he'll put it into law, and this will only accelerate the attack on values in public school classrooms where parents are trying to protect their children against this indoctrination. So, and think about this for a moment, Travis. You've got young kids. Yesterday we talked about what's happening here right in the shadow of D.C. in Maryland.
Yeah.
4-year-old, 3 and 4-year-olds being indoctrinated into this ideology. If this is all they ever know, they'll never have an opportunity to understand God's design for human sexuality and marriage unless there are those who are willing to stand against the cultural winds and do so.
Yeah, it's going to shape their worldview to exclude everything but the ideology this bill is advancing. And that's the concern, right? We've talked about the concern, the implications for education. Parents are aware of the problems. We've been seeing that for years. This will further exacerbate those problems, the religious liberty problems we've been talking about. So these are not, what we're trying to do is point to where this bill is pointing in a very negative direction, as Senator Lee noted, and people just need to understand that and pray for a turn of heart for those who are not getting that.
Right. Yeah. So a lot to be done here. We need to continue to pray for our nation, pray for these leaders, pray for these who voted for this, that they might have a change of heart. Roy Blunt, Richard Burr, Shelley Moore Capito, Susan Collins, Joni Ernst, Cynthia Lummis, Lisa Murkowski, Rob Portman, Mitt Romney, Dan Sullivan, Tom Tillis, and Todd Young. Pray for them, but also call them. Call them and call their offices and ask them why they will not stand in defense of religious freedom. And I'm hopeful, Travis, that we will see here maybe in the next couple of days how this fraudulent amended version that says it protects religious freedom, hopefully that'll be exposed.
Yeah, it really needs to be, because it claims to protect it, but it doesn't. And as Senator Lee outlined, it is going to leave a whole host of people hanging out to dry, and it undermines, it guts religious freedom.
So, folks, if you want the contact information, you can call the Capitol switchboard and reach your senators. That's 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121, or easy, text the word DUCK, D-U-C-K, to 67742. That's 67742, the word DUCK. And by the way, there were 12 Republicans that voted for this, but there were also a number of Republicans who stood for religious freedom in the face in the face of media hostility and this, this cultural trend that is taking place to embrace all of this. So if your senator voted the right way, call them and thank them for standing in defense of religious freedom and the rights of parents. Travis, certainly not over. We still got a lame duck. What else might be teed up very quickly?
I mean, so a number of bad social issues bills. We obviously have the Equality Act in the winds, a number of abortion-related bills. Meanwhile, Congress doesn't have to deal with the NDAA. We've been dealing with the possibility of women in the draft on that, and then budget process, continuing resolution, or appropriation. So a lot of opportunity for mischief making. We're going to be here keeping an eye on it, and a lot of opportunity for all of us to be praying as we engage in the process.
So no Thanksgiving for you.
We'll see.
You'll be giving Thanksgiving from your desk as you're working here at the Lame Duck. Maybe you'll have duck instead of turkey.
I'm going to be praying about this, Tony.
Okay, all right.